ceiling, yeah?
Mhm.
Okay. What's that? Okay. That's horrible. All right, you found one, yeah? He's alive. He's alive.
He stepped ashore and counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. Faces hollowed by months of cold and hunger. 5, 6, 7. His gaze moved from man to man, lips tight, breath held. 8, 9, 10. No words, just the counting, the silent tally of what remained. In December 1914, Ernest Shackleton sailed from South Georgia aboard the Endurance, leading 27 men toward Antarctica's interior. Their goal, to cross the continent on foot, a journey no expedition had yet achieved. But before they could even set foot on the mainland, the ice closed in. By January 1915, the Endurance was trapped in pack ice. Encased in the Weddell Sea, the ship groaned under mounting pressure. Shackleton listened. Each crack in the wood was a warning. The ship was no longer a vessel. It had become a cage. 9 months passed inside that frozen prison. Every day the crew watched the horizon, waiting for a thaw. But the thaw never came. Instead, the ice pressed harder. On October 27, 1915, the Endurance gave way. The hull splintered. The ship sank beneath them. Shackleton gave the order to abandon ship. Their expedition was over. A new mission began. Survival. 3 small lifeboats, limited provisions, a compass, and a fragile resolve. The ice drifted northward, unpredictably. For 5 months, they lived exposed, sleeping on floes under minus 40 degrees Celsius. Each night, colder than the last. Silence stretched around them, sometimes broken by distant cracking, sometimes by nothing at all. Shackleton kept count of days, of rations, of men. In April 1916, the ice beneath them split, deep and sudden. Shackleton knew the sound. It was time. They launched the lifeboats into the sea. For 5 days they rowed. Salt spray stung their faces. Hands blistered on frozen oars. Swells rose like walls, each wave threatening to flip them back into the sea. On April 15th, they landed on Elephant Island. Solid ground beneath their feet, but no safety. Elephant Island was barren, isolated, beyond the reach of known shipping routes. No ships passed here, and none would come. Shackleton counted again. 28 men, 1 island, 1 chance. He chose the James Caird, the strongest boat, barely 7 meters long. He selected 5 men: Frank Worsley, Tom Crean, Timothy McCarthy, John Vincent, Harry McNish. Their destination? South Georgia, 1,300 kilometers across the Southern Ocean, the most unforgiving sea on Earth. April 24th, 1916. They launched. The others watched as the boat disappeared into a gray, empty horizon. 17 days followed. Winds howled. Waves towered 20 meters high. The ocean hammered the boat. Navigation became a battle against chaos. Worsley caught 4 sextant readings, 4 fleeting glimpses between storms. Each measurement, a fragile line traced over a shifting sea. Ice crusted the James Caird, threatening to capsize it. Rations dwindled. Their world shrank to a wooden hull battered by water and wind. On May 10th, they sighted land. But they had landed on the wrong side. Between them and rescue stood a mountain range, unmapped, uncrossed. Shackleton, Worsley, and Crean left the others behind. No ropes, no charts. Only their hands, their boots, and the weight of urgency. For 36 continuous hours, they crossed glaciers, crevasses, ridges wrapped in fog, breath shallow, steps number. Their bodies pushed beyond warmth. Then, a sound broke the silence. A whistle, faint, steady, Stromness. When they reached the station, Shackleton spoke with measured words. "Can you tell me where I can find the manager?" But his mind had already turned back. His men were still waiting. 3 rescue attempts failed. Ice barred each passage. Weeks stretched into months. Then, on August 30th, aboard the Chilean tug Yelcho, Shackleton returned to Elephant Island. He stepped ashore and counted. 25, 26, 27, 28, every man accounted for. The original mission had failed. The crossing had never begun. But Shackleton's promise had been kept. For 22 months, through shipwreck, hunger, frostbite, and storms, not a single man had been lost under his command. And in the end, what endured wasn't the ship, it wasn't the crossing, it was the survival of every life aboard. It begins with a sound, a dull, wet crack, like a bone snapping underfoot. High on the slopes of Siula Grande, deep in the Cordillera Huayhuash of the Peruvian Andes, Joe Simpson lies sprawled across the ice at 6,000 meters. His right leg twisted, broken above the knee, useless. Above him, Simon Yates grips the rope, braced against a collapsing snow anchor. Between them, a fragile line stretched across the mountain. They had climbed higher than anyone before on the west face of Siula Grande, a sheer 1,500-meter wall of ice and rock. But the summit was already behind them. Now, they were trapped in a deadly descent. Simon lowered Joe down, rope length by rope length, through the blizzard, visibility near zero, temperatures plunging below minus 20 degrees Celsius. For hours they descended, the mountain falling away beneath them. Then, the rope went tight, and stayed tight. Simon couldn't see Joe, couldn't hear him. Somewhere below, Joe was hanging, suspended in midair over a cliff they hadn't seen coming. Simon's belay point started to crumble under the force, snow shifting, ice cracking, his strength fading, and then the rope went slack. Joe fell into darkness, into silence. When he opened his eyes, he was lying at the bottom of a crevasse deep inside the glacier. The fall hadn't killed him, but it had buried him in the mountain. Above, a thin shaft of light filtered down 15 meters of sheer ice walls. His leg throbbed, his harness dug into his waist. He was trapped. He lay still for a long time, listening to the crevasse creak and groan around him. Then he noticed it, a shadow at the far end of the chamber. A tunnel sloping down and away, deeper into the glacier. It wasn't an exit, but it wasn't death, not yet. He started moving, crawling backwards into the crevasse, lowering himself down an ice slope. His fingers were numb, his hands bloodied. Each pull forward another surge of pain. And then, impossibly, he saw it. A ramp of snow leading up to a narrow opening, out onto the glacier below the west face of Siula Grande. He dragged himself toward it, pulled his body onto the glacier, alone, exposed. He wasn't safe. The base camp at Quebrada Sarapacocha, far below, was still over 8 kilometers away, across broken glacier and moraine. His leg was shattered, his body exhausted. The temperature plummeted as night fell. He began to crawl, inch by inch, hour after hour, his world reduced to the ice beneath his chest, the sharp rocks beneath his knees, the sound of his own ragged breathing, every movement a negotiation between agony and survival. At night, he hollowed shallow pits in the snow to shield himself from the wind. The glacier cracked beneath him. Stars spun above, distant and cold. His leg burned, his lips split. His mind flickered in and out. Sometimes he heard voices in the dark. Sometimes he saw lights that weren't there. Each morning, he forced himself forward, crawling, dragging. His skin tore, his muscles trembled. He couldn't stand, couldn't cry out, but he moved. By the third day, he saw the moraine, an endless slope of shattered rock between him and camp. He pulled himself onto the rocks. His hands bled, his knee opened, every inch harder than the last. But he moved. He moved because stopping meant dying. At the edge of camp, he collapsed, his voice a hoarse whisper carried weakly on the wind. And somehow, Simon heard it. Simon ran to him. Joe's face was hollow, his body skeletal. He had lost a third of his weight, but he was alive. Inside the tent, Joe looked at the rope, its end frayed, cut clean, and in that moment, he understood. Simon had cut the rope. Many would question that choice. Some called it betrayal, but Joe never did. "He saved my life by cutting that rope," he said. "I would have done the same." That night, lying in the tent, Joe thought back to the moment he fell. The crack, the slack in the rope, the silence of the void. Sometimes survival isn't a heroic ascent. Sometimes it's crawling through darkness, guided by nothing but the refusal to stop. For Joe Simpson, it was never about reaching the summit anymore. It was about coming back. It begins in darkness, a sudden jolt, the sound of metal tearing, then water, rushing in, rising fast. Harrison Okene, 29 years old, the cook aboard the tugboat Jascon 4, is trapped inside the bathroom. 32 kilometers off the coast of Nigeria, the ship has capsized in a violent storm. Within minutes, the vessel flips and sinks, coming to rest 30 meters deep on the ocean floor. 12 men were on board. Harrison is the only one alive. Water slams through the corridors. Harrison is thrown out of the bathroom, swept by the current, tumbling through pitch blackness. Somehow, he finds a door, a cabin. He pulls himself inside, slams it shut. The water settles around him, rising to his chest. And then, stillness. He looks up. There's air. A thin, invisible pocket trapped beneath the ceiling. His only chance. He climbs onto a mattress floating in the water, keeps his head as close to the air as he can. Around him, the wreck creaks, groans, shifts, every sound a threat, every minute a countdown. Time stretches. His watch is gone, light is gone. He can't tell day from night. The water is cold. His body shivers uncontrollably. He tucks his head into his knees, breathes slow, prays. The air smells of oil and rust, each breath heavier than the last. Hours pass. He doesn't sleep. He counts breaths, counts the metal groans, counts the beating of his own heart. Somewhere in the dark, something moves. He hears hammering, distant thuds. His ears strain for hope. He bangs against the wall, again, louder. He kicks at the wreck. His voice cracks as he yells into the void. Silence answers. He drinks a can of Coca-Cola floating beside him. It's all he has. His stomach cramps with hunger. His throat burns from thirst. He lowers himself back into the cold water, his lips blue, his body trembling. Inside the tiny cabin, 13 cubic meters of air keep him alive, but the oxygen is thinning. Carbon dioxide is building, every breath harder than the last. He waits. The water moves again, this time louder, closer. Then a light, faint, shifting under the door. A diver. Harrison pounds the wall, shouts, "I'm here!" The diver moves past. The light fades. He slams his fist again. The diver returns. A helmeted figure peers through the water, sees a hand pressed against the ceiling, a hand moving, alive. For a moment, neither moves. Then Harrison grabs the diver's arm, holds tight. The diver jolts in shock.
Ceiling, yeah? Okay. What's that? Okay. That's horrible. All right, you found one, yeah? He's alive. He's alive. Okay, keep him there. Keep him there. All right. Just. All right. All right. Just hold him there, okay? Just keep him there. All right. Just keep him there and keep him calm, okay? All right. Just reassure him. Pat him on the shoulder. Okay. All right.
He wasn't expecting life. Rescue begins. The diver surfaces, calls his team. They bring Harrison diving gear. Slowly, carefully, they teach him how to breathe from the regulator. He's never worn one before. He's never been this deep before. Guided through the wreck, he follows the divers out, into the water, into the dark, into the cold. When they reach the surface, it's not over. He's rushed into a decompression chamber. 3 more days sealed inside, letting his body readjust to the pressure, avoiding deadly nitrogen bubbles in his blood. Only after those 3 days does he finally step outside, alive, 60 hours, alone, 30 meters under the sea, in the dark, in the cold. Harrison Okene was the only survivor. Later, he would call it a miracle, a nightmare, a memory he never wished to relive. Sometimes survival doesn't look like heroism. Sometimes it's waiting, enduring, listening to the slow ticking of your own breath in the dark. For Harrison Okene, it wasn't about escaping the ocean. It was about not drowning in it.